Hillary's convention speech last night was a good speech, but it led nowhere. Its strategy and its message is going to be interdicted by reality at every turn. And ultimately, the lines of attack and the lines of proposal that she laid out in that speech are each fated to be destroyed by events, by reality, and by what's actually going on in the world. It was a well-delivered speech for her, less screechy than usual, but I think that it strategically shows that she basically has no message. By the time you strip away each of the things she was saying and look at the reality underneath, her entire campaign is basically, I'm a woman and I'm running against Donald Trump and he's awful. And that's not enough for a presidential campaign. She began the speech by saying, let's compromise and work together. Well, is there any woman in the world, any person in the world, less likely to compromise and less known for a spirit of kindness and brotherly or sisterly love than Hillary Rodham Clinton? We watched her for 40 years, from the healthcare fight through Benghazi, through the emails. This woman never compromises, never meets anybody halfway. And yet she's basing her campaign on a willingness to do that. She says, we do not need to be afraid. The hell we don't. We're scared to death with attacks in Nice and Paris and Brussels and Scandinavia and San Bernardino and all of the attacks that have taken place throughout the country and throughout the world. We're terrified, justifiably terrified, about where the next terrorist attack is going to occur. And if that doesn't have us all upset, how about the targeted, planned assassinations of police officers by Black Lives Matter people in Dallas and in Baton Rouge? Killings literally aimed at killing cops. Now, if those don't terrify you, if that doesn't make you afraid, what will? And if the basis of her campaign is we're not afraid, well, that's very gallant, but it's not what the American people are thinking. Then she criticized Trump for saying, I alone can do all this. I alone can do it. And she was saying it takes a village. It takes the combined efforts of everybody. Well, America is looking for strong, decisive leadership. They're looking for someone who's hands-on and involved and working to make sure something happens. They don't want a committee to do it. They don't want to have somebody else blamed. The gridlock in Washington is driving them nuts. It's not that we have too strong a government, it's that we have too weak a president and too weak leadership. And when Trump gets up there and says, I can do it, his track record of doing it, his building, his accomplishing stuff, really leads you to believe that maybe he can, and gives us hope that perhaps he can. Then she lapsed into a kind of you didn't build it riff. You remember after Obama's last campaign, he said to a businessman, you didn't build this business. The guy who taught you English did, and the person who paved the road that you drive to work every morning did. They all built the business, and presumably they're entitled to a piece of it. That kind of collectivist thinking is not an easy sell in the United States, the land of rugged individualism. When she got to the economic problem, she approached it not as an executive who'll solve a problem, but as a social worker who empathizes with you, who holds your hand when you're unemployed, who gives you a shoulder to cry on. Now, apart from the fact that Hillary is tough as nails and nobody could imagine crying on her shoulder, that's not, again, what Americans want. And to the extent she proposed anything economically, it's the same old Keynesian nonsense of the stimulus package that Obama proposed. In the first 100 days, I'm going to spend all kinds of money getting the economy moving again. That kind of thinking just doubled the national debt in return for a paltry 2 to 3% annual theoretical growth rate. Then she said she's going to follow the money, and about Citizens United and campaign financing. Yeah, she has the all-time record in fundraising in American politics. This woman has raised well over $1 billion between the Clinton Foundation, the Global Initiative, her '08 campaign, her current campaign, and her various Senate campaigns and her husband's campaigns. To say that they represent not having money in politics is totally laughable, completely absurd, and flies in the face of reality. Good luck with that. And then she said, I'm going to stand up to China. Well, how about it, kid? She's been to China maybe a dozen times. She's met with the Chinese leadership frequently and has never stood up to China, has never changed the trade deals, has never condemned them for manipulating their currency, has never demanded that they make progress on human rights. She's met with China and rolled over and done nothing. So why do we believe she's going to start standing up now? And finally, the whole basis of her campaign emerged. Does Donald Trump have the temperament to be president? Can a man you can bait with a tweet be in control of nuclear weapons? Well, that's a slender read for a political campaign. Does anybody really believe Donald Trump is going to start a nuclear war? And when it comes to war, Hillary has the monopoly on that. It wasn't Trump that urged getting into Iraq. It wasn't Trump that got us into Libya. It wasn't Trump that wanted to get us into Syria. All of those were Hillary. Hillary's so insecure about her power as a potential female commander-in-chief that she's going to be anxious to show people that she's tough, like Thatcher did in the Falkland Islands and Golda Meir did in Israel with the Arabs and Gandhi did with Pakistan. And that kind of prove I'm tough war is very likely under a Hillary administration. Now, in terms of temperament, Trump needs to clean up his act a little bit. He needs to stop doing some of the crazy stuff he's been doing. But he has stopped. I think over the last month, he's been remarkably disciplined and very effective and hasn't put his foot in it. And the more he doesn't, the more he stays on the right track, the more hollow Hillary's whole campaign is going to be. And then the whole campaign is, I am woman, hear me roar. And I really think that the more blatant that becomes, the more that becomes obviously the sole reason for her candidacy, the more people will say, I'm not going to be conned and I'm not going to vote for a president just based on gender. Thanks for watching.